topics on our agenda for tonight. That's quite delivered. And one of the reasons for that is I want to give the selectmen from Langdon as much time as they wanted to talk to us about the food shelf, but they're not here, which is okay. They've been working pretty hard trying to figure out all the moving parts here. And the other thing I want to do is practice. We'll walk you through setting a tax rate and schedule a meeting for Thursday. Publicize it on Facebook and I'll see if anybody wants to participate in that. Traditionally, it's been not quite a smoke-filled room operation, but there's been very little interest on the part of the public historically, probably because we haven't asked. So, those are the only two things I want to do tonight.
Tell me what you do on Tuesdays? Set the tax rate on Tuesdays?
There's no statutory requirement for doing it any particular day. My desire is to get more people involved. And I haven't actually discussed that with my brother selectmen, so they might tell me, just set the damn rate tonight and let's go home.
So you got the sheet from the DR?
I got the sheet. We got the sheet early this year. We were very pleased with the new software.
I have to take it off the new software.
We were actually pretty happy with our circumstances. So, did Luke say what time he was coming?
I thought he was going to be here right off, unless he didn't know our meeting started at 7.
Yeah, he knows that.
I mean 6. Unless he thought that it was at 7. I haven't heard from him this week. I heard from him last week, and they very distinctly said this date.
Is that paper wall?
Maybe I should answer this. Thank you very much for your input. So, since I don't have my good glasses on, who's that fellow in the red sweatshirt, and how can we help you?
I own property and maintain part of the mains road,
Yes, sir.
and they've been logging out of here for 2 years, and I asked them to replace some of the gravel that they drove into the ground, and they just brought one load, and they figured that was sufficient enough.
And it sounds like you didn't.
I think I just paced it out, and it would take 4.5 more loads to get from my driveway to Mr. Engel's driveway.
Okay. So,
That's the section that I maintain.
yeah. Can you identify the contractor for us? And the landowner?
Hardwick.
It's Hardwick, and the landowner is who?
Hardwick is the lot.
Carolyn Ingalls.
Ingalls?
It's Carolyn Ingalls that owns that land.
So what our custom has been is to get the road agent to do an inspection, which we could arrange for early next week, if that's soon enough.
Yeah.
And then we'll come together again and say, well, what's the circumstance and what do we need to do about it? Is that acceptable?
It's not about Eagles, it's about the logger.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand completely.
Yeah.
But absent any other facts than the ones that you can bring to the table, I think we would need to put some more people at the table.
Okay.
And it's the opening day of deer season in Alstead is a religious holiday for the highway department. So they're not here, or David's not here. That's one. So if that's acceptable, then we'll try to get David to reach out to you as early as Monday.
Yeah.
Do a site visit at your convenience, and then schedule a meeting with us.
All right.
Is that okay with you, Ted?
Yes.
Does that work? Or Kelly, you got that? And your name, please.
Robert Gillespie.
Oh, of course. Huh? It really is the glasses. Sorry. Oh. Any other public comments before we take off on a run?
There's a tree down right where the food shelf is.
Food.
Yes,
Kitchen, I'm sorry.
we did address that, and they said they thought it was a good deterrent for people to be going out in there. They're having trouble with scallywags going out.
It's going to be a bigger problem. It's blocking the road.
Well, I'm sure they'll take care of it by then, but that was
After
the
they
road.
get their deer.
Right.
Yeah.
Road department.
So apparently we knew about it, you knew about it, and the wheels are turning. And if it's still there next week, let's talk about it again. The select board would not encourage you to take matters like that into your own hands, if only because we don't want to support your children after you cut both of your arms off. You probably dropped this off. I hope that made it on the internet. Taxes. Linda, back me up on this because my grasp of the facts seems to be affected by something. I have these worksheets for 2011, 12, 13, and 14 to give us some context. But what we're really talking about is December, the December tax rate. Okay. What we discovered by doing a revaluation is that the value of the town in 2014 was about $180 million. Now, this is not a number we made up. This is a number that's generated by the assessors with the supervision of the DRA. They do random test assessments to make sure they're sort of compliant with professional practice. So last year we were at depending on how you handle utilities, which is more complicated than you want to know, and not worth talking about, we're right around $180 million. So this year that number is 160.
Well, how much?
160. So significant devaluation of our property. We knew that was coming. What that means is that for most people in town, the value of your property went down. On the value, not for resale, but for taxation. So what the professionals say your property would sell for, that number that appears on your tax bill, which you're going to get in December, will be smaller than it was the year before in most cases. Now, we stumble over this every year, and I'm not going to apologize for it, but if you put on an addition, or granite countertops, or put in a pool, or a new garage, or paved your driveway, maybe your number didn't go down. But you're in a pretty small minority if we look at the building permits and people are actually telling us the truth about what they're up to, which is not always the case. A very small number of people made improvements to their properties in the last fiscal year sufficient to push their individual numbers up instead of flat or down. So almost everybody in the room is going to have the same experience. You're going to look at that bill and you're going to say, I'm sure my property was worth more than that last year, and you will be right. So that's one piece that we need for setting the tax rate. Another piece is the budgets, which you've already voted on, so we know that as a fixed number. The revenues, which is a little more variable. The part of the calculation that is key to all of this is something called the unassigned fund balance, which we used to call surplus. Money raised and appropriated that has not and probably will not be spent. That number varies not too widely, but it does vary from year to year.
And what is that?
Well, I was going to use the context first.
That's on the second page right there on that one.
There it is. I'll make a nice little spreadsheet for all of this. But
Yeah, they changed the
the
form.
format changes every year, so it's a little funny. I'm not really as dumb as I sound. In 2011, it was 560,000. In 2012, let's give you the other piece of that. The tax rate in 2011 was 20.94. The tax rate in 12 was 22.46, and the fund balance was 527. That's 527,000. I'm sorry, that was 15. See, I'm doing it to you already. That was 15, those last two numbers I gave you.
Can't be 15, has to be 14.
What's that say? Oh, it says 12.
Well,
That's right.
It can't be, because
I suggest we put these on the board, and if you want to talk, I'll scrawl.
Okay, so if you drew a line for 2011,
Okay?
you would show a town valuation of about 177 million.
Okay?
Tax rate of 20.94,
Okay?
and a fund balance of 560,000. 560,000.
Hold on.
I don't think so, because there's nothing in it. That's something the other day.
And if you bear with me, this will be part of a larger philosophical conversation about capital reserve, fund balance, paying for warrant articles in the present versus the past. Thank you. 2012, town's valuation is about 178 million. Good morning. Oh. The tax rate was 22.46, and the unassigned fund balance was 527. For the 13, the town's valuation really was right around 178. Tax rate was 26.80. Fund balance was 560. If you go to 14, the valuation is 180. Tax rate was 23.80. And the surplus, the unassigned fund balance was 780. Oh, Kelly. So for 15, the valuation is 160. The proposed, not actually, this is what we're here to talk about. The proposed tax rate is 26.53. And the unassigned fund balance is right around $1 million.
No, it's 726.
Minus what we spent for paying off warrant articles in March, which was 365. So 725 is really what the number is. And this is the crux of the matter, because in some years, the selectmen have elected to use some fund balance to suppress tax rates, and some fund balance to support warrant articles in March. The piece that I'm trying to open up to public discussion that is solely the responsibility of the selectmen is the suppression of tax rates by transfer of fund balance. So we should probably start another column out here and just see what we did in years prior, if I can find that.
That won't be there, I don't think. It's on the second page, on those other forms.
Here we are. So in 11, the selectmen used 200,000 of fund balance to reduce the tax rate.
So that column is what you use to give you a balance of 560, or is that how?
No.
560 is the starting number is on the right-hand column. But it's not really the starting number, it's the starting number after warrant articles were paid for the previous year, if they were, which might be more detailed than we actually need for this warrant.
No, I think you're wrong there. I think that's the ending balance. Because you've already taken the 200,000 off.
So that makes more sense.
That is what it is.
That's
So in
what-
other words, you still had 560 after you.
Right,
took the
That's not what this document
Okay,
says.
then it doesn't? Okay.
The document says you started with 560, you hung on to $200,000, and you were left with 360.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
That much.
Okay.
So in 12, we started with 525.
527.
We spent 162 of that to suppress the tax rate. Suppress is probably the wrong word. Lower.
And we'll drop down the tax rate. I was thinking with reduce.
Reduce.
Is that the trouble?
In 2013, we spent zero. And in 2014, we spent zero.
Those 2 years of 200 and 162 is what set you up for the...
Because we also didn't use anything towards warrant articles.
Correct.
We used it, you took it off at the time of taxation, of setting the taxes instead of using it for warrant articles.
Can we, spent on warrants?
None, zero. I think it was zero on that first one. I think all those other years it was zero. And last year we spent 364,056 on warrant articles.
So zero in
Every year.
11?
Yep.
115 in 12.
I think that was a capital reserve.
That took it out for capital reserve.
Reserve.
That was the truck.
Truck, and it
So
was
we took that
capital
out of capital
reserve.
reserve. Which makes a difference.
It makes it wasn't funded back.
Right.
He's got it up there.
We sure?
It says here, the amount voted from surplus was $115,000. I don't know how else to read that.
Yes, the warrant article read the withdrawal from capital reserve, capital reserve fund. Did we replenish capital reserves with surplus or something like that? I don't think so.
We can't, they give us those figures.
Well, they're doing a straight subtraction down the page. So they start with 525, they take out 115,
I'd have to go back and.
they
Which
take out
year
another
was that?
160 to set the tax rate,
15, 13. So we would have done it.
and then that left us with 250,000
Okay.
retained.
Okay,
So this is part of the calculation, and slow me down if I'm going too fast, but there is a
well,
record.
it could have been, because it was a.
So, we didn't spend anything in 13 on warrant articles from fund balance, nor did we lower the tax rate from fund balance in 13. Gotta love it. Same for 14. Same for 14. We did not use any
Yes,
fund
we
balance.
did, right. I thought we used 364,056. You haven't got this 14. This-
In 2014, it says 2014 tax rate calculation. We had a budget unassigned fund balance of $780,000. We spent zero.
Yeah, that's right.
We spent zero on emergency
Yeah.
appropriations, and we spent zero on reducing the tax rate.
It's this year.
So,
Yeah.
that's all leading up.
13 or 14?
That was 14.
14.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay?
We're good.
We're getting there.
This year.
Now, this is what we came here to talk about, but the other thing you need to know is that given a town of our size, the Department of Revenue Administration makes a recommendation. It is not a compulsion. It is a strongly worded recommendation that we keep 8% of fund balance on hand for emergencies.
So what is that number?
Last year, that was $250,000, and we have historically said 8%, we'll do 5. And that's what's gone on in the past. We have no obligation other than prudence to do something.
But you've exceeded that number.
We have, because we've spent too little or taken in too much. Because either we're bad budgeters or bad estimators or both.
Well, neither,
I don't,
because you didn't have a police chief
No, this is this year.
no, this is
From last year.
last year. Oh, okay.
And really, the police chief portion of that number is pretty tiny as a percentage.
Really?
4%.
Okay.
Should there be a column, I'm just suggesting, in order to figure out what you're gonna do in December, is what the delta would be, if there is a delta, on a house of $200,000 valuation, what the delta in the old tax rate versus the new tax rate would be. Because when it's presented to the town, you use that calculation or that figure.
And Linda's been doing that work.
And Jamie Dow wrote back, our tax rate, the new tax rate that they gave us without using anything was lower than what last year's tax rate was.
So our taxes go down
Whether you rate goes up or not.
For most people in town, if nothing happens, if we spend not a dime in the next 2 days,
Right.
your tax bill will be smaller.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Because of that drop in valuation. The tax rate will be higher.
But I thought the tax rate was gonna offset that because of the
Right,
expenses
so
of
you
the
would pay
town
more
keep
taxes.
going anyway.
No, you don't, because you pay more tax.
This is where the argument, this is where people stumble. Bless you. Even though the rate went up, and the valuation went down more than the rate went up.
Then you would go.
So the check that you write will be smaller by not an insignificant amount, depending on what you want.
But
But the
remember,
200,000 advice is well taken. It's something we've done for years. Here are the consequences of this decision on a $200,000 house.
and I can,
She can practically do it in her head.
What would that delta be?
okay, 200,000 and cheap tax rate, what was your tax rate?
Less than six. We want last year's.
Well, I mean,
23.8, 26, 25,
2380.
Does that tax rate,
Stayed the same.
does the tax rate
Value goes down.
provide enough income to the town
Yes.
to fund a go-forward estimation of what is needed?
By definition.
Okay, so if the answer to that is yes, why would you touch the fund balance? Except to lower taxes even further.
That would be why.
And then you have to also look into the future of what are we planning on doing next.
Well, that was what my point was. Are you gonna have enough in the tax rate?
It's just not as simple as we hoped it would be.
Well, yeah.
Philosophically, there are towns who have survived 250 years in New Hampshire and in various economies who have said, you know what? We're taking all of that fund balance and giving it back to the tax rate up to the limit recommended, the 5 or 8% recommended, because that's who we are. And not only that, but we're not going to have any capital reserve funds, because that's who we are. Ackworth has been doing this for years. I'm not offering any criticism or endorsement. I'm saying this is within our right and our power to do it this way. The philosophy is that people are more willing to spend money that's already been collected from them, because that's what all of this is, or nearly all of it, than they are to encumber themselves to pay for something in the immediate future that they want to buy today. The best example of that is a $400,000 fire truck. Absent any participation from capital reserve, that fire truck is nearly $3 on the tax rate. If you wanted to pay for it in 1 year with no,
If you were gonna.
Every $160,000.
We already have a capital.
we do, but the philosophy still has to be honored, because if you don't understand how the system works, you can't make credible decisions about how to move from the present to the future. We know what happened in the past. It's pretty well documented. In the past, select boards believed in capital reserve funds, and they believed in spending some portion of fund balance to both lower the tax rate in years where it really seemed essential, or equalize the tax rate from year to year, is the philosophy back then, and also to support major purchases through warrant articles. We have traditionally done both of those things, but it's important for the voters to understand that we are not obligated to do either of those things. It's all your money.
But the voters kind of voted over the last couple of years that we've been here, not to do away with capital reserves,
That is
to continue funding them. So So I would make the presumption that voters haven't changed their minds unless.
And I have made the presumption that an awful lot of people in town don't understand how the process works, which is why we're having this meeting.
Granted.
And if I can offer my 2 cents worth, when we accumulate fund balance, we are taking the control out of your hands. We're saying that we are gonna save it for you because you probably won't on your own.
Well, we knew this
What I
was-
would argue is that by using capital reserve funds that have to be passed by warrant, that's a truer form of saving, should the town elect to do so, than us just putting in savings what we've already taken from you to put in savings.
The thing you want to be careful about, though, is that when you have that kind of money in fund balance, you want to stay in a town where something is really needed and not, I want a certain something, because every year our taxes have been going up a little bit, and like last year, they voted in the extra money for raises and stuff like that. So now this year's budget automatically starts at that extra, with that extra money in there, where we could have done raises last year because there was a lot of money. There was money